Woohoo! All right, so Cavs they win game 2 and take a 2-0 series lead over the Toronto Raptors. And 115-105 was the final score. Game was kind of close. The Cavs ended up pulling away at the end there and, capitalizing on some Toronto turnovers. And that was kind of the story of the game, really. Toronto was not really able to capitalize on a lot of Cavs mistakes for the majority of the game, and the Cavs just were. They got a few lucky bounces to go their way. If I'm really just thinking off the top of my head, James Harden's three that hit the backboard, floated up, and then went in. That was a definitely a home team bounce for the Cavs, and you're not going to have that against Toronto. And Emmanuel quickly still out for game 2. There's a lot of reports saying that he's going to be back for either game 3 or game 4. But he'll be in this series for sure. He'll come back in one of those two games at the very earliest, game 3. But, just to kind of give a little instant reaction here, Brandon Ingram struggled today against the Cavs. The Cavs they look like they figured out how to guard Brandon Ingram. In 36 minutes, he had 7 points, 3 from 15 from the field, 1 of 3 from 3. No free throws. He had 4 rebounds and 3 assists, 5 turnovers in this game. Not a very good game from Brandon Ingram, and that really set the tone. At the beginning of this game, Jared Allen once again, the Cavs, not even Jared Allen, the Cavs, they just came out real physical at the beginning of this game and kind of set the tone there against the Raptors. And, there was multiple times where Toronto just could not stop really anything. The Cavs look a lot more physical than the Raptors. And credit to the Raptors today because, obviously this game was closer than game 1. They put a lot of bigger, not bigger this way, but bulkier kind of guys to kind of take advantage of some of the Cavs' weaknesses. I've said this before on this channel doing my predictions, and maybe I even said it in my game 1 instant reaction, but the Cavs, there's a narrative around Cleveland and the Cavs that they are this weak, soft, not very physical team. And that's not really the case. You go against some teams like Boston and OKC who has a lot of big guys to throw at you, and the Cavs don't really have that. Oh, they have big, tall guys. They're just not as, physical and bulky as those guys from other teams like on Boston and like on OKC. And that shows in the games against those teams. The Cavs get embarrassed. Or, when was the last time you saw a Cavs Celtics game where the Celtics didn't, blow some sort of massive lead in that game? And, the Cavs come back and either win or the Celtics survive, basically. That's the, Celtics get out to an early lead and the Cavs kind of crawl back and either take the lead and win the game at the very end, or the Celtics just kind of put the Cavs away, in the fourth quarter. That is basically Cavs versus Boston. That's what that is, and I've been saying it, since the playoffs start. For the Cavs to make the NBA Finals, somebody else has got to beat Boston because the Cavs aren't going to do it. If I'm Boston, I want the Cavs in the finals. Or in the Eastern Conference Finals, because if Detroit can get there, even though they did just lose game 1 yesterday, yesterday. Was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Well, they lost game 1, regardless. They lost game 1 to Orlando in a very surprising game from the Magic. But, if you're Boston, the best case scenario for you, if you make it to the Eastern Conference Finals, is to play a team like the Cavs, who you match up very well against. And, if you're the Cavs, you want anybody but Boston. You can beat New York. You can beat any other team that's on the opposite side of that bracket. And honestly, I like our chances against everybody except Boston in the East. And this is going to be a series. By no means, just because Cleveland has the 2-0 series lead, right now, by no means is this series over. But absolutely no means this series over. You got to go to Toronto, a city that has not had a Raptors playoff game in years. I think the last time they played it was one random year against the Sixers. And that was the last time they've been in the postseason. It's been a couple of years. That atmosphere is going to be rowdy, and especially with if you're going to turn over to hockey because we're going up to Canada. Maple Leafs aren't in the playoffs. This is Toronto's only sport that's on right now, and the whole city of Toronto is going to be behind this Raptors team, and it's going to show in Toronto in a few days. But this was a huge win. This was a must get for the Cavs. The Cavs only got to win one. You got to escape Toronto with at least one win. And even if it's not the worst thing in the world if Toronto ties it up 2-2 because they got to come back and play Cleveland in, I like to call it the Q still because, whatever. I might have just shown my age a little there, but I still call it the Q. It will always probably be the Q to me. Just because that was 2016. That was my, me growing up with LeBron and everybody. That was my stadium. But Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse is what it's called now. But anyways, yeah, Brandon Ingram, not a very good game from him. R.J. Barrett had 22 points in 38 minutes. He was the Raptors' best player by a mile today. Scotty Barnes, 26 points in 40 minutes. I honestly might take that back. I think it might have been Barnes that had the better night out of RJ Barrett and Scotty Barnes, but it's 1A 1B right there. They had pretty decent nights, 26 and 22 points. Jacob Petiti is, whatever. And Jamal Sheed, 38 minutes, only 3 points though for the big man. And there wasn't really a lot to do on both teams' bench here. You had Colin Murray-Boyles on Toronto. He had 17 points today. The other guy that I'm not even going to pronounce his last name. I'm not not even going to try. He had 21 minutes and 12 points. He hit a 3 today. He was 1 for 3 from the 3-point line. Had 10 rebounds, and that was kind of what I talked about before. The bigger guys, the Cavs struggle with that. If the Cavs aren't as strong as you, they can be physical all you want. It's like you're a high school football player and you're going up against, a middle school, just pick a random middle schooler. And that middle schooler's coming at you and he's being physical, but at the end of the day, you're the older guy, you're the bigger guy. It's kind of like that, there's probably going to be somebody, my middle schooler, my kid is a black belt in whatever, and he can beat any type of kid that's in high school still. There's always going to be that anomaly. But the stereotypical, high schooler versus the stereotypical middle schooler, you're going to have that. Or, let's even, not even middle schooler, freshman or senior and freshman. That's always going to be advantage to the senior because they are more developed. Obviously, there's anomalies, but the stereotypical freshman versus senior, you're going to have the edge going to the senior, obviously. So it's kind of like that, when I talk about how the Cavs can, be physical, but if you're smaller than a guy, you're going to have a disadvantage there. In most cases, and especially when the talent gap is even out in most of these teams as it is in the NBA, size and weight is going to matter even more. And credit to the Cavs for kind of getting out of that and not letting the Raptors big men become a factor really in this game. Obviously, it kept Toronto in this game. Toronto got a lot of second chance opportunities. Whether it was, offensive rebounds, and the Cavs have kind of struggled a little bit with, the bouncing around type rebounds where 4 guys get a hand on it and they swat at it and it somehow comes back out to the 3-point line, and the Raptors just seem to get a hold on those, whether it was on the offensive end or defensive end. It always just kind of felt like the Raptors were coming up with those. But that's basketball. What are you gonna do without that? The Cavs have been kind of struggling with that all season. From when I've watched them, that it just feels like rebounding sometimes can doesn't go their way, and when it does, it normally comes in bunches. Good job for the Cavs to not let that get out of control in this game. But definitely a lot more second chance opportunities for Toronto than in game one. And if you're Toronto going up to home court, somebody could argue that's 5 to 10 points advantage for the home team, and the Cleveland won by 10 today. So you can argue that being on their home floor helped the Cavs. Obviously, it helped the Cavs win today, but it could have been the difference between a 2-1 series or 2-0 series lead for Cleveland and a 1-1 series tie going back up across the border into Canada. Let me talk a little bit about the Cavs. Dean Wade, only 3 points in 28 minutes. Not his best game at all today. Jared Allen, like I said before, he came out really, really hot especially in the first quarter. I think he might have had like the first 6 points or 4 to 6 points of the game today, and all of them were, in the paint, basically. Only 10 points, but he did what he needed to do. 3 rebounds, had 2 steals and 3 blocks. So he did his thing defensively too. Mobley, 33 minutes, 25 points. 1 for 2 from the 3-point line. He's gonna take some threes. He's gotta make them when he gets open there, because he's gonna get those shots. There's going to be moments where Mobley is gonna be open from the 3-point line, and he's kind of improved his shot. I know a lot of people have been like, "Oh, his numbers are down." But the Cavs are trying to develop Evan Mobley, and those are going to become some of this stuff is going to be growing pains for the majority of the regular season. But the Cavs are hoping that it's going to pay off in the playoffs, which right now it is. The Cavs obviously are undefeated in the playoffs right now. Obviously, they've only played 2 games, but still, it's a fact. The Cavs are undefeated in these playoffs right now. So, like I've said, 33 minutes, 25 points, 11 of 13 from the field, 1 of 2 from 3. Did miss a free throw, but not a big deal. 2 for 3 from the free throw line. 8 rebounds, only 2 assists, had a turnover, but had a block as well. No steals, but had a block. And let me see. Only a plus minus of 3 in the plus 3 in this game. Was by far the had the lowest plus minus of all the starters. Dean Wade had a plus 14, Jared Allen had a plus 18, Harden had a plus 14, and Mitchell had a plus 11. So by far, Evan Mobley the worst when it came to plus minus today, but obviously didn't matter. Dennis Schroeder, really the only. Not really. 14 minutes, 5 points in 14 minutes today. The Cavs are counting on him to have a good game, and I'm really, really hoping that one of these games is going to be one of these next 2 games is going to be that game where Schroeder goes off and, gets maybe a couple threes. Did not make a 3 today. Hit all of his 3 free throws, was 3 for 3, but only 1 for 5 from the field. Only 5 points today. Had the bucket and the free 3 throws. There you go. 4 assists today, a rebound, no turnovers, which is good. But I'm really, really, I'm waiting on a Schroeder type game where he kind of goes off in the playoffs, and he's known to do that. The only guy that really deserved any credit here for the Cavs bench today was Max Strus, but even then, only 6 points, 20 in 27 minutes, 2 for 5, 2 of 4 from the 3-point line. 3 rebounds, 3 assists, had a turnover, but whatever, and was a -3. Dennis Schroeder was also a -3 as well. Sam Merrill, 20 minutes today, only 5 points, 2 of 6 from the field, 1 of 5 from 3. Before I make any drastic things, like Merrill should be out of the lineup and not having to play, put Craig Porter Jr. in or Tyrese Proctor in or somebody other than him. I'm going to give everybody a chance here. But with that being said, guys like Sam Merrill and Jalen Tyson and Dennis Schroeder, have got to get going. Keon Ellis had his moments in game one. Strus obviously had his moment in game one, so we're going to give them a pass. But right now, the rest of the bench has got to wake up if the Cavs want to make a deep run, and especially take out Toronto in a gentleman's sweep or a sweep. If the Cavs definitely need their bench to step up if they want to sweep Toronto for the third straight time. If you want to look back, 2017, the Cavs went undefeated. No, they lost one game against Boston in the Eastern Conference Finals that year. That was Kyrie's last year. They swept the first round. I think that was the Hawks or the Wizards. Swept Toronto and then beat Boston in 5 before ended up losing in 5 to the Golden State Warriors, probably the best team of all time. So that was one sweep. Cavs swept the number 1 seed Toronto Raptors in 2018. That was LeBron's last year in Cleveland. Everyone remembers the buzzer beater, LeBronto, all that kind of stuff. But that should not in no shape or form should that be on the Cavs' mind. It is a sweep right now, but you got to take at least one of these games in Toronto to get a stranglehold on this series, because I don't see the Toronto Raptors coming to Cleveland and beating the Cavs not once but twice. Maybe they can get them in game 5, maybe if Toronto wins, let's say Toronto wins game 3 and Cleveland escapes with a win in game 4. I don't see the Raptors coming to Cleveland after that and, losing in or beating Cleveland in Cleveland, then going back to Toronto and beating Cleveland, and then coming back to Cleveland and beating Cleveland again. I just don't see that happening. So I think if the Cavs win one more, I think the series is pretty well in hand. I really hope that does not age as bad as a Warriors fan in 2016. But yeah, that's really going to do it here. Not a whole lot to really talk about. Like I said, I kind of covered everything that I wanted to cover. Cavs are being a lot more physical. That was definitely a question mark coming into this series of how physical the Cavs were being. They've answered the bell on that. It's just a matter of, who Toronto has out on the court at a specific time. Obviously, with bigger guys out on that court, they're going to have maybe a physical a size advantage or something like that. But, if the Cavs can be more physical than Toronto, I don't see the series moving past 5 games. But this is why it's you got to win 4 games to move on. This is why we play. Because if this was football, Cavs have been moving on, they would have moved on already. Twice over. If this was a 1-game single elimination series, but it's not. It's a best of 7. So, Cavs, job's not done, but every Cavs fan should feel real confident right now, and Toronto fans should be real scared right now if you are them. It's do or die. If you lose game 3, I don't same copy and paste of what I just said a few minutes ago. I don't see the Raptors winning 3 straight, let alone 4 straight. But time will tell. I'll see you back for game 3. We'll do the same type of thing here, instant reactions. But until then, we'll see you in LeBronto.